right. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and then another 7 oceans add to its supply, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God, for he's the exalted, all-powerful, all-wise. We confide in no other in our time of need, and we praise no other in our good fortune. He is one. And even if I lived to be 1,000, it would still not be enough to thank God for his many blessings and gifts. This is Brother Sharif with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. We have Coach Clovis Gallen here today. I'm going to step off for 1 second to turn the lights on so it's a little brighter, and we'll get into this much anticipated interview. Okay. All right, sorry about that. Okay, just a few community announcements before we get started. Not many. For any parents, grandparents that have children between the ages of 7 and 15, we have the Black Collective Reading Program at Championship Community Center, which is 459 West King Street. Every Saturday between the hours of 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., led by our elders and people there, Sister Tanya Morgan, Sister Juanita Kirkland, Mr. Jeff Kirkland, Carrie Kirkland, Sister Anita, and many others. We have a program there where we teach the youth reading, writing, and comprehension skills. It's no secret how some of our children are struggling with reading. So we have that every Saturday between 11 and 1 at Championship Community Center. It's called the Black Collective Reading Program. If anyone else has any positive things going on in the community, please inbox me on Sharif Hamid on Facebook, and we'll be glad to announce anything that's positive going on in our community. The call-in number is 717-846-5067. 717-846-5067. If you have any questions or comments for our brother here, Coach Gallen, I've known this brother for a while, and much anticipated interview, especially with the success of the Bearcats this year. So without no further ado, please introduce yourself, brother.
Name is Clovis Gallen, head coach of the York High boys basketball team. I'd like to thank Sharif for having me on the show this evening, and he said it's a live show, so feel free to call in with any of your questions, comments, concerns, anything you'd like to ask about the program, about the players, about the school itself. I'm at your disposal.
Right. And for those who are watching, if you can please hit the share button and then hit watch party. Hit the share button at the bottom of your screen for those who are viewing on Facebook, and then hit watch party. What that does is bring more viewers into the interview, because this again is a much anticipated interview, and I want as many people to listen and tune in as possible. Well, brother, tell us about your before we talk about the season and the Bearcats, tell us about you growing up here in York, your family, much as you want to share. Not that you need any introduction, but that's what we do on the Hour of Power.
I was born and raised in York, PA. Went to Ferguson Elementary School, lived out in the Parkway projects for a good portion of my childhood. Then after my mom moved out Parkway, we lived in west side of town, east side of town. I lived here, there, and everywhere. Eventually went to Smith Middle School, then graduated from York High. Ultimately attended Lincoln University. Got to play basketball at Lincoln University for 4 years. Graduated from Lincoln in '99, and then came back home right away. About a year after that, I began to substitute teach down in the Red Line Area School District in Dallastown, and then ultimately got hired by the school district within a few months, and I've been at the York City School District ever since. I began to coach as the junior high coach back in 2001, and for 5 years I was the junior high coach, the 7th and 8th grade coach, and the freshman coach, and then I became the lead assistant for 10 years, and then this is my 3rd year as the head coach at York High.
Wonderful, wonderful. What would you say, you said you grew up, our good brother, Jermaine Bell, he said, salute to Parkway, stand up. So, what's the difference from how York was, just growing up, different, you mentioned the different parts of town back then from what you see now with the youth, how we interacted with each other? Like, what's the big difference that you see?
The biggest the two major things that really stick out in my mind is the structure of the family. I know even growing up, there were a lot of my friends, a lot of my cousins, didn't have may not have had dads in the house, may have had single parent households, but all of us were taught to really have a strong respect for authority and a strong respect for our elders.
Even without that father figure.
Even without that father figure, being in the house, I mean, that was the underlying theme. Like, you never ever disrespect an adult. You never ever disrespect your elders. That has been lost. And the community was really close knit, and it was tight. And I think an element of that has been lost as well. I can see pockets, like your show, for example, the community rallying around the basketball team, for example. I can see elements of that, really trying to come back and really trying to rally and come back together. But I think the biggest thing that we have to really figure out as an older generation, we're now transitioning and we're becoming the elders, is we have to figure out how to reestablish that threshold in kids, where they really have a respect for authority. Because I can guarantee you many of the parents in our community probably don't realize how disrespectful some of their children can be out in the community setting, out in the public setting. I'm just thinking about us as kids. I think you graduated in 91? 92.
Told my age to the whole.
Yeah, I apologize.
That's all right.
Brother Sharif was a year older than I was, but and with us growing up, we could be in the hallways and we may be having a conversation that might be deemed inappropriate, but it didn't matter what adult came around the corner. If they entered our presence, the conversation shifted, or we perked up. Everything changed, and now I'm in the hallways on a daily basis, and I'm subjected to kids having conversations that are very inappropriate often, and I'm like, oh, check your language, hey, change your conversation, that's not okay. And the scariest part of it is that they don't even realize that it's not okay. They think that it's socially acceptable to have those kinds of conversations, and I think that is one of the biggest challenges we face. And I can tell you that a lot of the kids want structure. They want someone to check them. They want someone to teach them that level of respect, because I challenge kids. I challenge students all the time. I think about in the parameters, just in a basketball sense, what the expectations that, me, shout out to Coach Papo, shout out to Coach Ice, the amount of pressure that we put on our kids in a practice setting, in a basketball setting, and the expectations that we have for the kids. And they meet those standards, and I think all kids really want that kind of structure. So if you ask me the two biggest things that are different from the time that you and I grew up, I would say it's the family structure and the lack of respect for adults and elders in our community.
I don't want us to get in any trouble on the show, but our good brother Darius Taylor said we need to bring the paddle back.
Big D.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do that, brother, but I definitely understand what you're saying. It's just it's just different. Now you said you've been in the school system for 18 years. Did you Was there anything that you saw happen that or that you could pinpoint or that made that change in respect for authority? And the second question is, do you have communication with the parents, and do the parents accept responsibility if you say, hey, little Johnny was acting up today? Do they typically accept responsibility, or is it some little backlash there? Or
to the first part of your question, where was the shift? I think the shift came, and I can't pinpoint a year because it was a slow transition. I think it really came when you talk about the level of focus in the school setting itself. When you talk about the amount of activities that students have, the amount of extracurricular activities that the students have. When you and I were at York High, you think about all the intramural sports that the kids have. Okay, you didn't have to. Maybe you weren't good enough to be one of the 12 guys on the varsity team or one of the 10 guys on the JV team, but there was always intramural basketball for those kids that weren't. That didn't make the team. And if you made the team, you weren't allowed to play intramural basketball. There was always intramural flag football for the guys that maybe that didn't want to be on the football team.
In the community centers.
Yes. There was always different clubs and activities for the kids to be a part of in the school, and that was sponsored by the school district. You think about, we had the ski club, we had the young astronauts, we had the chess club. There a lot of that stuff has been brought back, but not near to the level that we were able to have support us to be in the school setting. And now there are some things for the kids to look forward to, but there just isn't enough of how do I say it? There isn't enough attention on what is right about our school. There isn't enough attention on what is right about being a good student. There isn't enough attention on on what the students are accomplishing in the school setting. When there's a lot of focus, there's a lot of money being spent on what's wrong. I was in a meeting for a student, and I looked around one time and I was counting the dollar signs at the table. It was a troubled student. They came from a troubled environment, but I was just thinking about the amount of support that was around the table for that one student and how much money was spent on that one student. And I'm like, well, where are the end of the school year trips for the students that got honor roll every marking period or perfect attendance? We went to Hershey Park. I remember being a safety in 5th grade at Ferguson, and because I was a safety that crossed the students every day, at the end of the year I automatically qualified for the Hershey Park for the Hershey Park trip, and it was a big deal. It was at the forefront of your mind at the end of the school year for getting honor roll every marking period. Just those little things. Having those little nuggets and incentives in place for all of the students that are doing right. We have some of those things in place right now, but not near to the level that we've had it when we were students. There's a lot in place for the students that are doing wrong. You have you think about
that's what I do. I do mobile
therapists. You think about students who need to maybe go to an alternative ed. There's a lot of money. That's big business. There's a lot of money being spent there. There's not enough money being spent on the kids that are doing right, because I guarantee you those kids that are in the middle of the pack, or just on the other side of the fence, they'll see the attention that's being because every kid wants some attention. We all want attention to some degree. You think about the people that we all want to be connected to something. If you go to prison and you do something wrong, the first thing they do is isolate you from everyone else, and it's a form of punishment. People don't want to be isolated. But if you feel like you're connected to something, whether it's positive or negative, you're going to gravitate towards that. And I feel like we need to spend more time and more energy and more money on those things.
Do you think that's county or citywide, or you think that's just in the inner city?
I think that's more in the inner city, because in more of the inner city, with the way the funds are appropriated, they have to focus their money on, they don't have enough money to be able to spread it out and distribute it to pay teachers to, I don't know if people realize this, but those are things that are in the teacher's contract. Okay, there were in the teacher's contract. If you were coaching or running a school sponsored activity after school, you got compensated for that. You know, I don't think people realize, you know, and then not to mention, you know, as a teacher, you're putting a lot of time in, not just in the school, but you got to go home, you got a lesson plan, you got to you have to grade papers, you know, you have to prepare for this. So if you want, you know, your educators to put more time into the school setting, into you should compensate them. And and what happened is they stopped. And because they didn't have the resources to be able to do that anymore. And it really, not just, that's just one aspect of it, but it definitely affected our school climate for sure.
Yeah, Elder just had posted on Facebook, because I do a lot of research, that approximately $23 billion is more spent on suburban schools than inner city schools. I don't know if that's probably a nationwide statistic, but just by my own observation, because I just don't go to city schools. Matter of fact, what I do, I'm more in, you know, different school districts than I am in the city, even though you would think it would be the reverse. And them schools are immaculate. I'm talking about flat screen TVs in the cafeteria, multiple ones, full gym, like you're at Gold's Gym or something, in their you know, facility for what they call like specials or whatever. I'm talking about the you know, the thing that you do the walking on. I mean, you think you're at Gold or Gym or Planet Fitness. I'm like, man, this is an elementary school. This is a middle school. And then you come to the inner city and I'm like, man, it's shocking, because I go to these schools all the time. Dallastown, Red Line, I'm out there. So I don't know.
I'm in agreement. I mean, I firmly believe that you have to educate the whole child. You know, we've
mind, body, and soul.
We talk about, you know, our students are lacking in, you know, being able to read, lacking in being able to write, and lacking in arithmetic. And okay, that's all fine and well, but you can't sit here and say, all right, we're going to make this kid take 2 English classes and 2 math classes and take away all their extracurricular activities and expect them to and it's, you know, basically strip away all those other things that make the academic and educational setting valuable to them, because those extracurricular things and all those things matter. I mean, think about what they did for, you know, you and I, all the school dances they had. I mean, I think about, you had the back to school dance, you might have had a Halloween dance, then you might have had a winter dance. Then you came back, you had a Valentine's Day dance, and you might have the Morp dance, and then you ended the end of the school year dance, and then maybe the prom. I mean, just there were all those incentives in place. And then we had to be held accountable, because if you didn't do what you're supposed to do in school, you weren't able to attend those events. You couldn't go to a football game or a basketball game or a school-sponsored event if you were suspended, expelled, or whatever. You know, there was so much to do in the school. It was the cornerstone of our community at that time, and we really have to find a way to get that aspect of things back. And it's not going to just take the school district itself. It's going to take the community to get behind the school district. It's going to take the parents to get behind the school district and really value the education that the school district is trying to provide for their children. Because there's a quality education that you can grab at York High. You and I are both York High graduates. Most of my family are York High graduates. My daughter graduated from York High. All 3 of my sons are current students at York High and thriving, you know, academically at York High. You know, Clovis is currently being recruited. As a matter of fact, right before we got on this interview, I just got a call from a guy in regards to him, you know, being at the top of the list for a major prep school in the country right now. They want to contact, they want him to come for a visit. So you can get a quality education at York High. Our community has to get behind the students. The parents have to get behind their own children and be, you know, not only advocates for them, but be firm disciplinarians of them as well. And we can get a quality, and we can make our school what it really is supposed to be.
Yes, our brother Jermaine said, you know, PTA meetings, roller skating parties, and I think this is brother Jody brother said York City schools have the highest taxes.
I can't argue that.
Someone said people. Okay. Yeah, so it's a whole lot of, like you said, factors that aren't being discussed, and it pangs my heart that where I graduated from, all you hear is the negativity. But it's a lot of positive things, past and present. I believe from York High, and y'all awful quiet out there. The call-in number again is 717-846-5067. If this interview ended right now, this brother dropped some atomic bombs and given us a lot of jewels. So don't be shy. Call in 717-846-5067. What would you say up until this point was y'all toughest game this year, win or lose? Because sometimes you could lose one that you shouldn't have lost, and sometimes you can win some that you might have got a gift. What would you say is your toughest game this year of the season?
Off the top of my head, I would say, and we've had some pretty good games this year. We opened up the season 10-0. Then we finally dropped our first game against New Oxford. We felt like we should have won that game. Even though we were down 32-10, we came all the way back and took the lead in the fourth quarter. We dropped one against Harrisburg at Harrisburg. That was a game where Marquise went down in the I think late in the third quarter, early in the fourth, and we ended up losing to them by 4. That was one we felt like we let get away as well. That was a great game to be a spectator of, I'm sure. And then we dropped our third regular season game against Dallastown, a game we felt like that, once again, we didn't come out with a level of energy that we need to sustain to play 4 quarters of basketball against a quality varsity team, and we lost that game. But out of all of our games, at the forefront of my mind, when you talk about just tough, grinded out games that with a very tough opponent, that a well-coached team that knew you very well, I would have to say the 3 games against New Oxford. They were the toughest games that we had this year. The first game, they jumped out on us 32-10. They hit their first 6 3-pointers. I think they were like 8 for not their first 9 or something ridiculous. And we came storming all the way back. That was Clovis had a career high that game. He had 41 points in that game. He literally he played some of the best basketball I've ever seen him play. At the offensive end, as far as his ability to put the ball in the hole. And we fell short. New Oxford made a couple of plays at the end of the game, and they ended up winning. The second time we played them was for basically to kind of lock up the division. We Southwestern didn't have a very good year. They were at the bottom of the division this year. We had to close out the season with them. So going into the second game with New Oxford, we knew that the winner of that game was going to win Division I. And we were supposed to play on a Friday night. It got snowed out, so we ended up playing a Saturday afternoon at 1. Coach Sean Bear is a heck of a coach.
Someone's calling in for you.
Okay.
Hold that thought, okay? All right. Hour of Power.
Hello. This is Val Croft. I had a question for Clovis about the next game.
Yes.
Who's calling, ma'am?
This is Valerie Croft.
Hey, Val. How you doing?
Oh, how you doing,
Right,
sis?
how are you?
I'm good.
I had a question. So, we left with like 2 seconds in the last game, so I have no idea about whatever happened. But what I'm hearing is that the next game is closed.
It is closed to the general public. That is correct. The game is only open to immediate family members of the players and the faculty of William Penn Senior High School.
Wow.
And that was not the call of the York City School District at all. There was a conference call this morning with District 3, and that was the call of District 3. I guess they got a report in regards to what transpired at the end of the game, after the game was over, I should say, with some of the fans from Muhlenberg and a few of our fans, and they decided that I guess initially they said that it would not be open to the public at all. Our district went to bat for us. They tried to, keep the game open to everyone, and I guess District 3's compromise was, well, in that case, you can have your faculty can come to the game, and the immediate family members of the players can come to the game only. And it's unfortunate. We're all pretty dejected over that decision, because it's ultimately going to be the last time that the seniors play on that floor tomorrow.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And I guess there's nothing they can do for the other team because, this wasn't a one-sided situation. So they get to go to Hershey and play in the championship game with all their fans able to come.
You're making a very good point. And our staff was talking about that all day. Because according to the reports that I received, the fans from the other team are the ones that incited what happened yesterday, and they'll be traveling to the championship game with no repercussions. And my only recommendation is for some people to make a call to District 3 and have that conversation with them about it. Like, why are they allowed to still attend their game and we're not? Maybe they'll overturn the decision within the next 12 to 16 hours. I don't know. Maybe our fan base could put enough pressure on them with some phone calls to the District 3 chairman, and that's probably the best that we could do right now.
Because I'm just going to say, where I was seated was right across from where the other team was sitting, and there were a couple things that I just found disturbing. Like I said, I left before all that happened. There was like 2 seconds left when I decided to go ahead and leave, and there was, I guess he's a coach. He was dressed like a coach. He was sitting at the end of the bench for a little while, but there was a gentleman for the other team that he was sitting on the bench like he was a coach at the end of the bench, but then for most of the game, he was standing. The little crowd, that most of the teams have, of the students chanting and stuff, he was chanting with them, and that's against PIAA rules. You're not allowed to do that. If you're a coach, you're supposed to be sitting down.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. You are right. I was completely oblivious to what was going on. I typically am. I don't hear. I don't know. Some people really think they can, I guess, yell at me or wave to me or whatever. I completely tune the crowd out. I hear my players and I hear, the assistant coaches that are on the staff with me on the bench. And the scorekeeper. I don't hear anybody else. So
of course, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that I just thought were out of order by the other team throughout the game. Like I said, I didn't see whatever happened after the game, but throughout the game, there were a lot of things that were out of order, and it was kind of disheartening to see that on our court. You know what I mean? It was just very. I felt like the refs, they know the rules. They could have walked over there and said something.
You're right, and I've seen officials, say that to my own players. Sometimes when my players, make a great play, I encourage my players on the bench to celebrate each other's successes all the time. We actually reward it. So if a guy makes a great play in the game, you might see a guy jump up, and I saw one of my kids slide on the floor and do the dolphin one time after a kid made a great play. And sometimes they turn around and jump up and wave their hands to the crowd. And officials have come over to my players or come over to me and say, hey, don't do that. So you're right. They should not try to incite the crowd like that. And my only recommendation for our fan base is to tomorrow morning, look up the PIAA, look up the District 3 website, find the phone number on there, and flood them with phone calls. That would be my only recommendation, and maybe they'll make a phone call to our principal or our athletic director and say, we reconsider, But I think the point that you would have to make in that phone call is that, number one, it wasn't our fan base that incited what happened. Number two, their fans haven't had any repercussions regarding this. And number three, that why do our kids have to suffer at the hands of what happened with another fan base? It's unfortunate, and we have, like as before mentioned, I have 9 seniors on the team, and for those seniors, tomorrow is going to be the last time they play on that floor before next week we head into the state tournament, and all those games will be on the road.
And anything?
I definitely plan on taking your advice at making that call tomorrow. I just think if you're going to do something to one team, you would have to do it to the other because. You can't fight with yourself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It had to be two-sided. And like I said, I didn't see what happened, but it had to be two-sided. And the report that you didn't have just York people or York fans being arrested or whatever. So clearly this was on both sides. So if you're going to do something to one fan base, then you should do it to the other.
I can assure you that there were three people from their fan base that received charges.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else, Queen? You have?
like very proud of both of you, you know, with this going on. And because, you know, I looked over at that bench and seeing Papo and seeing Kyle and seeing you and seeing Chris, you know, it really, you know, and I one of you, I can't remember which one, had put on Facebook about making pull the bleachers out. And when I looked up to see if they had pulled the side bleachers out, I actually looked up and Mr. Huffman was up there talking to the superintendent.
I saw that too. Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, it really, you know, regardless of the refs being unfair and everything, it really was a really cool feeling. I love coming back and seeing the game, and I can tell by the teams, there was a lot of stuff going on in that game where young men, you know, that young energy, they really could have behaved differently, especially what people want you to think about high students. They could have behaved differently, but you can tell that the team has taken on the personality of the coaches. You know what I mean? And so I do want to applaud your coaching staff and you, because those young men with the calls that were made and things that were going on could have, during the game, behaved a different way. And I was very proud of them with what I saw.
Thanks, Val.
I was very proud of them.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for calling in, and don't let it be the last time. We're here every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and thanks for calling in.
You're welcome.
Thank
Have
you.
A good night, fellas.
You too.
All righty. We'll be getting a lot of comments about some things that, you know, were going on, during the game. Is there anything that you wanted to clear up or, you know, clear the air about that unfortunate ending with the game?
You know, I see a lot of people making posts on, you know, Facebook about, you know, the officiating, the flow of the game and all that. And, you know, I can say this, you know, for my team, you know, we work very hard for countless hours every day to try to play a perfect game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know if there's any basketball game in the history of basketball where the game was played perfect, where a team went down and made every single shot, didn't give up any points, made every foul shot, never fouled, made every correct pass, boxed out every single time. You know, my kids did not play without flaw yesterday. And we know that. We know we played a game that was, not to the level that we're capable of. And we were really disappointed at that. But we were also disappointed with the way, the flow of the game as well. The biggest disappointment for me was, you know, and I'm going to publicly defend this kid, number 13, Davon Cortez, was accused of doing something that he was really distraught over after the game. And I'm going to continue to shout out about it to anybody that's willing to listen, because he didn't deserve that.
Are you talking about the technical foul?
The technical foul at the end of the game.
Yeah, because that kind of put it out of reach, even though, I mean, I was watching it, that charge, that was very questionable. But even with that, the game was still within reach, because I believe, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, when that happened, it was about 8 seconds, 7.9.
14 seconds on the clock.
Oh, it was 14 seconds. Well, that's like even more in reach.
No, I think Clovis went to the basket. There might have been, I guess it was 7.9.
Yeah, I remember that, but it was still within.
It was still within.
Reach.
All we had to do was foul, and maybe they missed a free throw. And
foul.
I mean, we had a game against Red Lion where there was, I think, 4.9 seconds on the clock, and it was at the end of the first overtime, and we drew up a play, and Clovis came down and hit a three as time expired.
Anything can happen.
So anything can happen.
That's a ton of time in basketball.
It's a ton of time in basketball. But what happened was the kid for Muhlenberg was standing behind Davon, and he went to go cut and move forward to the basketball, and he tripped and fell. Davon didn't even touch the kid. He tripped and fell, and the official at the baseline called a foul on Davon. Davon immediately turns with his palms exposed.
That's after the charge.
This is after the charge, immediately after the charge. Davon turns with his palms exposed and said, "How is that a foul?" Another official from half court, he was on the other side of half court, immediately blew his whistle and assessed Davon a technical foul. Of course, I'm away from the play. I'm assuming that he said something inappropriate. So I wait for that ruling official to come to the table.
You think he did like a hand gesture and he mistaken?
I watched it from, you know, I think two people had a Facebook Live video feed, so I went back and checked those. And I also have a Huddle account where I can actually watch. All of our games are uploaded live, so I can go home I can, as soon as the game is over, I can check my phone and look at the game. So I looked at that as well, and Davon simply just exposed his hands like this and said, "How is that a foul?" And the official walked over to me and he said that he gave him the finger. That was his explanation.
None of that is on tape.
He said he gave me the finger, and I said, "I don't believe you." I mean, knowing him, knowing the kid, his father is sitting in the stands right behind him.
You know your players.
I know my players. I know their character. I said, I don't believe you. He said, "Coach, he can't do that." He gave me the finger. So he went and shot the 2 technicals. Now, I didn't even realize this. Everything is moving so fast. You know, you're coaching the game. You're running through everything. And then at the end, you're like, man, I got to go take a look at this play.
Right.
Where he said my player gave him the finger. Okay. Because, I mean, we have our own consequences when you receive an unsportsmanlike technical within our team rules. Not mind you, if you gave an official the finger, I would, in my mind, I would think that's an immediate ejection. At any rate, I go back and look at all three views, and it all comes together. The official that called the charge is the same official that called the technical foul. The official that called the foul, initially I thought the same official that called the foul is the same one that called the technical.
Now, was he right up on the play?
He was not right up on the play. The official that called the initial foul was turned to Davon. He was about to walk away and go report the foul. Davon standing there saying, "How is it a foul?" The other official that is beyond half court assessed the technical and said he gave me the finger. Well, Davon was never engaged in conversation with you at any point. Never. So how did you give him a technical foul for giving you the finger? And that was when, like, it really took me. I'm still, like, in my stomach right now, disgusted at that, because you really tried to assassinate this young man. And I wasn't the only one that heard it. I mean, he had to report when he gave me the explanation. My entire staff was standing there. There's some fans standing there, and the people at the table are listening to this. So you're telling me that this young man, 17-year-old child, gave you the finger. You're assassinating this young man's character, and you're not being truthful.
Is there? I mean, I know you got a lot, going on, trying to prepare for the next game. Every game is important, and some people online here, it said that they have emailed the PIAA, and they haven't got any response. With that being so clear, is there anything that could be done where they go back on the tape and say, I mean, you basically fabricated this? He put his palms up, because Darius is saying you could see on the tape where he just put his palms up. That's very different from someone, I can't do it on, but giving them the finger. Can something be that's either happened or it didn't?
That's the unfortunate.
That's why
part.
I asked you about.
That's
can
the
it be
unfortunate
mistaken?
Part. That's the unfortunate part, because you told me that when you say he gave me the finger, that means he was directly engaged with you as far as dialogue, contact, as far as, maybe body language or whatever. He was turned to the official that assessed him the foul initially, and he said, "How is that a foul?" He never even engaged in conversation with you. You assessed it at half court. You assessed the technical and then walked to the other official, had to turn to him and ask, basically say, what is the tech for? Like, who are you giving a technical foul? And as far as repercussions goes, it's unfortunate. When we talk about, I can be held accountable. I have to be held to a high standard as a coach. And this is considered taboo, to talk about officials right now. Like it's the big conversation that you're not supposed to have. Don't publicly talk about officials. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Those guys they're perfect. They're without flaw. Well, nobody's without flaw. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes.
Right.
And sometimes we're just wrong. And this, I will say publicly that this is just wrong. And I'll go to wherever they want to listen to me, and I'll tell them that, because I know
it's almost
that
fabricated.
man lied to me and lied about what my player did, and I'll stand up for somebody's child that I'm supposed to represent all day long, because that's what I'm here to do, represent these kids and try to put these kids in positions to be successful. And who knows, maybe college coaches out there, I know, Davon has talked about maybe going to Stevens Tech or maybe going into the military. Maybe that college coach is sitting in the stands and he hears the report that official writes about him, and he says, "You know what? I don't want that kid anymore because he has poor character." And that's what you just did about, somebody's child. So as far as repercussion goes, I don't know. I'm held to a high standard. My kids are held to a high standard. They can be ejected from a game, have to sit out from a game or whatever if they get ejected from a game. But, all we can do is write evaluations on officials during the season and send them in, and they get rated, and I don't know. After that, it's kind of like
it's so flagrant. I mean, either someone did something like that, or they didn't. Very, very unfortunate. But I applaud you for being bold enough to speak up on something like that, because on any sports level, it's not a quote unquote safe thing to do to speak out against an official. But that's so blatant, and so much was on the line. I can't say it enough.
I would hope that people would be able to see, that I'm just being honest and true about the situation, and wouldn't hold it against me. 'Cause that kid didn't deserve it, and if you're going to hold it against me, so be it. But just don't take it out on kids, because they don't deserve it. They didn't deserve what happened. They didn't deserve what happened to them yesterday.
They worked hard all year.
Yeah.
Everyone, that I've seen, I haven't been at every game, but every one involved, the staff, the fans, people, making sure that we're up on what's going on. I don't want to say names because I don't want to leave, anyone out, but it has been like a family. And one time I was at, I believe it was, I forget which game I was at, and the person I was next to, I said, man, this is a beautiful scene, and y'all were winning the game. They said, yeah, man, York High is doing it. I said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about them 4 or 5 black men with suits on leading this team, talking about you in the coaching staff. I said, this is a beautiful scene. All y'all seem to work together.
Shout out to Coach Popo, Coach Ice, Coach Kyle Moore.
Yes.
Coach Proctor, these guys invest a lot of time into to what we do, and to try to, put a good product out there on the floor, and get our kids to compete at a high level. I don't know if people really know how many hours go into what these kids do all year round. I live with 2 of them. I have 2 sons that are on the team, and I know that Clovis would wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and shout out to Kelvin Parker Sr., and would go to the CA and lift weights with him for an hour, and then go to school for his school day, and then go train after school somewhere. This is all, before the season. And then, during the season, kids go to school all day, and then, everybody else is going home after school to study. My guys might go to study hall that day, and then, they might leave for a little bit and come right back to get on the bus to go to a game. Or, we have practice that day until, 6:30, and then they go home, and then they're messaging me about, a game they may have watched on Huddle to get prepared for the next game. There's really a lot that goes into what we do.
And like you said, the coaches, I just love the way y'all work together. There don't seem to be no egos involved. And I know, like going back to what you said earlier about the lack of father, figures, just, in our years, whether they need it or not, we can never have enough guidance. And I know you brothers, especially the ones that you mentioned, are being a great example, for these young men. So that's what I meant when I said this is a beautiful scene. I mean, y'all were doing y'all thing in that game, but, I try to look at things, broader, more on a communal and global scale. When I seen y'all just working together, being dignified, all the stereotypes that you hear about, black men, y'all have knocked that out, the way y'all carry yourself with each game. So that's what I meant when I said this is a beautiful scene.
Well, big shout out to Coach Graybill too.
Yeah. Quick question for you, man. I remember coming up back in the day, always, I remember it like clockwork, always about the second Friday in December, they would have it was like on the level of a rivalry of Duke and North Carolina, York Catholic and York High, especially at the High, the fans lined up, man, our brothers back in the day, man, Icy, Kassan, Sean Calhoun, Donald Lambert, all the brothers. Well, what are you involved in scheduling? Like, what happened to that? That was like
what happened was, I guess it might have been right after I guess the Yachty brothers left, and then Malik Martin, and DeAndre were there. I think Blaine was the coach at the head time, at the head coach at the time. They had a really good team that year.
Right.
But what happened was, our programs kind of went in different directions.
Okay.
And we had a ton of success. Back since I guess Troy took over the program in 2006, 2007, and I became the lead assistant that year. We had a down year, then we had a mediocre year, and then boom, 2009 we go to the state championship game, and then we went on like a 9-year run of county championship, district championship. We had a lot of success. And we were really looking at our schedule at that time and really beefing it up, and making our schedule more regional heavy as far as playing teams from District 1, playing Philadelphia publicly schools. We had got Chester back on our schedule. We got Harrisburg back on our schedule. Early in that stretch, we had Coatesville on our schedule before they were dropped. Then we were going to the Geigle up in Reading and playing in the Geigle Classic up in Reading, and they were matching us up with a District 12 or District 1 team like Math, Civics, and Sciences. Or we were
and York Catholic, they're in a total different.
Yeah,
they've always been in a different district.
They were Class 2A, but when there was a floor classification. And we were Class 4A. So playing them wasn't beneficial to us as far as trying to get those power points to get a better district rating.
Okay, I understand.
And then we were, it was a great rivalry. It really was. I mean, we've had wars with York Catholic. Even that last time that we played them, it was a really close game up until like the third quarter, and then I think we went on a run and kind of stretched it out and ended up winning that game by double digits. But when I think about what we were trying to do for our program and preparing us, because we got a taste of going to the state championship. And when we got there, I mean, on that run, we played like 4 District 1 teams. I know we played Parkland, we played Central Bucks South, we played Penwood in the championship, we played Plymouth White Marsh, and I'm forgetting somebody else in there. You got to win 5 games to get there, or 4 games to get there. But we were like, okay, we need to, make sure that our team is in the Division I Summer League at the grinds. We need to be playing against college kids or grown men. That's number one. And B, we need to play anybody. I mean, we were starting to get calls from DC. We played a team from, they were calling us to play us. When we started to have that success, we were like, hey, can we get on your guys' schedule? I'm looking up these teams on Max Preps. I got to find out who these guys are before we say yes to anybody. Okay, we'll play you guys. We're playing the Oxon Hills out of Maryland. We're playing, I mentioned the Penwoods, the Math, Civics, and Sciences. We got, and then we had Chester on our schedule. So it was like, these are the teams that are going to get us ready to be able to win district titles and make a deep run in the state tournament. And that was our ultimate goal. Before that, I don't know, what the vision of the program was, but I know for us, the vision was our schools never won a state title. Where our kids look up at those banners all the time up on the board, and we're looking up there and we're like, okay, can we get your year up there? 2019 is going to be up there for the division title. 2019 is going to be up there for the league title. We missed out on the district title. Who
got the closest? Because I know my year, I got to give a shout out to '92 with T. White and Shannon and Emma Cole and Scott Daw and all them. I know they got. I think Harrisburg might have knocked them out, and then the 09 that year. Who got the closest? And it was one of those years, right?
That 91, 92 year, that was with Shannon, T. White, and all them. We got to the we lost in the district semifinals to Steel High, I believe, and then we ended up coming around and seeing Steel High again.
I think that might have been the
Steel
High
final
knocked us out
to go to the state championship. We lost to Steel High again. They had Jeff Kleckner. Seth, I can't remember his last name.
I remember him. He went to UNLV.
He went to UNLV. E.T. Anderson. They had a really good team, and it was a war. It was a game that we felt like we should have won. Some things didn't go our way down the stretch, and then in 2003, 2004, we had Tyrone Gallen, Shamar Williams. Big shout out to Tyrone, my cousin. Orlando Rose. Those guys got to the Eastern Final as well, and we lost to Parkland that year, and that was a year that we really felt like we could have won the state championship. Parkland went on to play Penn Hills in the state championship, and Penn Hills beat them. But Penn Hills was like very similar to us that year out of Pittsburgh, and they ended up beating us that year in the state semifinals. In 2009, we actually went to the state championship game. We only had two teams in the history of our school go to the state championship game in basketball-wise. That was 1949
and
2009.
Jermaine said that was still high that beat us that year, and they had 8 Division I players.
They were deep.
Yeah, and our brother Eric, man, peace to you, brother. He said that brother was Seth Myers.
Seth Myers was his last name. Yes, that was
his
his last name.
They had some players, but we hung in there.
Jeff Kleckner.
Yes. We got 10 minutes left, family. 717-846-5067 if you want to call in, make any questions or comments. I mean, this brother is really dropping it from family life, community life, talking about different education, different teams that have played. I mean, this is a very powerful show. Please share this and encourage others who haven't seen it to go back, because this is one of the most powerful shows I've ever done. Yes, our brother Darius said 92 needed him and Kite. Okay. Yes.
One of the funniest guys I know.
Never a dull moment, man. But finishing out, the states would be at the Giant Center.
The state championship will be at the Giant Center. We're excited about our opportunity in the state tournament. Obviously, the district tournament didn't go the way we planned. We have a huge vision board in our locker room, and we talk about what our goals are all the time. It's something that left a nasty feeling in the kids' stomachs and in my stomach as well, all of my coaching staff. So we're looking forward to that challenge. The goal is to win tomorrow. We win tomorrow, we get the 3 seed out of District 3. And we would get the.
So that's a very important game. It ain't like it's some throwaway game.
Let me explain how important that is.
Yeah, break it down. Man.
When you talk about tournament play, it's like the NCAA tournament. The higher seed you get,
right?
The lesser opponent that you have to face.
And you still can't sleep on them.
Can't sleep on anybody. The easier path you have to navigate to the championship. The 4 seed goes to the eastern part of the bracket. The top 32 teams in the state go to the state tournament. The eastern part of the bracket, you open up with the, I want to say in the first round, I think it's it's not the 8, 9, 10. I can't remember that first round game. I want to say 6-1. And then in the second round, you get the District 1 champ. That's Suburban Philadelphia. That's, that championship will be this weekend. That'll be Penncrest, or I forget who else is in the finals over there. And then in the second round, you may end up seeing Abington Heights. Abington Heights has George Tinsley. They won the state championship last year, and they returned most of their roster. Then in the third round, you had to play the District 12 champ, which may be Mastery Charter North, or who's Mastery Charter? Archbishop Wood. They're both in Philadelphia. Very good teams. All those teams have been ranked in the top 5 to 10 in the state all year. And if we win tomorrow, we get the 3rd seed. We go west. We'll play the 3rd seed out of District 7, which is Pittsburgh, which is going to be either Penn Hills or Chartiers Valley. We're assuming that game is probably going to be closer to home, probably like Chambersburg. And then if we win, we get the probably the 1 seed out of Pittsburgh, which is probably going to be Mars. Mars is the team. Well, they got to play Moon first. Like those names, Moon and Mars. They're playing in the District 7 championship this weekend. The winner will probably get the winner of that game in the second round, which I'm assuming is going to be Mars. They're like 20 something and 1. They went to the state championship last year, and then we may see Muhlenberg again in the third round. So I'd love to play them again.
Right.
I really would. I would pay money to play that team again.
Right.
As such, we got to take it one game at a time. Tomorrow, the goal is to beat Northern. And, as a coach, you're always trying to look at projections, but you're really trying to get your kids focused on the next game. So we win tomorrow. We put ourselves on a very good track in the state tournament.
Well, we're wishing y'all all the, blessings, and we support you, even though we can't be there in body, but we'll be there in spirit. And finishing out, switching gears a little bit, since I know you're a basketball expert. Finishing out, we got about 5-6 minutes left. Who do you think's the better player, LeBron or Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan.
You ain't even Pause
Yeah,
on that,
Jordan,
man.
Michael Jordan.
Why you say that? Well, my sons are in the audience there. They over there moaning at you.
Well, see,
be giving my guests no hard time, boys.
The thing is, all right, there's measurables and then there's intangibles. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about measurables, LeBron probably he's not a better shooter than Michael. Okay.
Mm.
Athleticism, okay.
That's kind of a toss.
It's kind of a toss up.
You talking about 260, 270.
Yeah. When you talk about size, though, LeBron has the measurables when it comes to size.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, LeBron's a better passer. He can play 1 through 4 in some situations, 1 through 5. But when you talk about defending, LeBron can defend depending on who's on the floor 1 through 4
because of his size.
Because of his size.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing that you can't account for when you talk about the eye test and when you talk about measurables and when you talk about how fast a guy can run and how fast a guy could jump.
Mm-hmm.
You can't account for that ticker and that heart and that intestinal fortitude, guts, determination. Mike had it. And that will, that grit, that desire is what, for me, puts Mike over the top. When I watched, I grew up watching Mike.
Right.
And I watched LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
When you watch LeBron, I've seen LeBron show some of that from time to time. I've seen him just put that on display, but not consistently. He always puts a stamp on the game in every area, whether it's with scoring, whether with his assists, whether he's rebounding, he has to defend another team's point guard, whatever. But when you watched Mike, and we grew up watching him, when he was in a situation where his team needed to win, it was a playoff game, a crazy series, or whatever, and you were sitting there watching, you already knew what the outcome was going to be because you knew what he was going to will his team to a win, period.
Well, according to LeBron, he said that coming back from 3-1 with the Warriors back in 2016 undisputedly made him the GOAT. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I can't argue with what another man thinks about himself.
Right.
If that's the conversation that he had in his head, and that's the answer to the question, I can't argue that.
Can't dispute 6 championships either.
Undefeated in championship
undefeated.
series.
Yeah.
To me, I haven't seen anyone greater than Mike, and the closest player that I've seen to it, and I'm not a fan, and people that know me well that are closest to me know that I'm not a fan, but I can give respect where respect is due. Kobe Bryant is the next best guy.
Yeah, how does he?
Because
we're going to have to do a part 2 of this. How does he get left out? The last time I checked, 5 is greater than, how many has LeBron got?
3? 3, yeah. I think it's 3. Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
3.
That's easy math.
I wasn't the greatest in math, but
that's easy math.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, but Kobe Bean got 5 with the same.
Yeah.
I don't know how he gets bumped out of that but it can just keep going on. How does Bill Russell get left out?
I mean, I wasn't a fan of Kobe either, but when I watched Kobe's games, I rooted against them. So when they were in that series with Portland, I was like, oh man, No, he's not in that conversation.
We're gonna have to. We're gonna definitely have to do a part 2 of this when you have time.
Yeah,
brother.
sure.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You've cleared up a lot of things and made things a lot, very clear for us. Sorry you had to experience that. Sorry the young man and your team had to experience what they did, but it's character building.
Yeah, he'll learn from it. He'll grow from it.
We got one minute left, but we definitely gonna have to bring you back when you have time. You're welcome on this platform anytime. This is Brother Sharif with the Hour of Power with Coach Gowling. Send up the blessings to the Most High for our Bearcats that they take it all the way to the state championship. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week at 8 p.m. on Channel 16 Local Access TV and streaming live on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for having me.
Took it right to the wire, man. Man, that was great, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, I took it right to the wire, man. Yeah, I'm surprised more people ain't calling, but they was messaging, man. People,
Yeah.
people get kind of shocked.
Could have kept on going.
Easily.
Yeah. It worked out. It worked out. He's been doing a lot of this stuff too, though. He's been getting calls, and I'm happy for him, though. He's a good kid. He deserves all the stuff that he's getting. I remember when your dad used to play basketball over at McKinley. Crazy athletic. Used to go up, jump off the wall, and boom! He was one of the best to do it. We used to go over there and hoop over there. Yeah, your dad played basketball too.